What goes into an appraiser's determination of the value of a home? There are 5 things that really go into that determination. The first thing is the location of the home. They are going to pull comparable sales from typically about a 1 mile radius from the home. They will expand from that if they're not finding homes that are similar enough potentially, but they do like to stay within that close radius of the home. So the first consideration is location, pulling comps from near the home. The second is the condition of the home. They definitely consider, on a scale of 1 to 10, probably the same um, characteristics that you would consider to be good condition of a home. So will an appraiser. They're impacted by fresh paint and carpet and updated light fixtures, and those are the more superficial items, but they also consider, is there any dry rot on the home, any visible deterioration or deferred maintenance. Those are the kind of condition items that they'll look at. They'll look at the features of the home. The third would be features like literally how many bedrooms, bathrooms, and square footage. Price per square foot is a big question for buyers when they make a purchase, and sellers when they're listing their home. What is the average price per square foot in this neighborhood? And there are some neighborhoods that a price per square foot is an excellent uh, determining factor on the value of a home. Homes that are maybe in a neighborhood where the homes are very similar, of a similar year built, perhaps of a similar condition because maybe they're only 5 years old, so there hasn't been a lot of remodeling and updates to most of that neighborhood. A price per square foot would be very relevant in that location. But then there are other locations, areas of much older homes like 1925 bungalows in Northeast Portland. That neighborhood's very different because one home has a remodeled kitchen and they added a bathroom upstairs, and the next door neighbor maybe is kind of a very original, or maybe was updated in the 70s, but the price per square foot, even though they're right next door to one another, is obviously going to be completely different. And another factor might be an unfinished basement or versus a finished basement, and what that could also add in terms of price per square foot. You're typically going to get about 50% of for basement square footage compared to finished upper level square footage. So the price per square foot is a determining factor. Certainly it is looked at, but an appraiser is going to take very much into consideration the location of the home and those factors when he's looking at price per square foot. So we have location, condition, the features of the home. And then fourth, we have the market. What is the market like? Right now we have a lot of escalation on offers because the market's really hot right now. So maybe the price of the home does escalate beyond even what the comparison sales can support. Sometimes we will have an appraisal come in low because of that. Other times the value can be supported because we can provide evidence of receipts for a lot of remodeling or work that was done or improvements. Or we can also, as a listing agent, Eva and I will oftentimes talk to the appraiser. We'll talk about the level of activity that we had during those escalating offers. Maybe even if the appraiser is open to it, show him examples of those escalated prices, so he can kind of see what the market would bear according to the buyers in terms of the price. And that doesn't always work, but it has been very successful quite a few times. So we do make that effort on our sellers' behalf when we have a price escalate on a listing and can provide that evidence of what buyers were willing to pay, maybe beyond what the comps would support. And then the fifth consideration that the appraiser has to take into consideration is the type of financing for the buyer. Obviously, there's no appraisal for a cash buyer. For the appraiser is typically there because there's a financing, a loan involved. If it's VA financing, then that typically has VA and FHA financing typically has the appraiser has strict requirements on the condition of the home, fairly strict, in terms of no dry rot, really the flooring requirements that all the flooring must be in place. That seems obvious, but there are just condition requirements for VA and FHA that are probably the most strict for an appraiser to meet. And then conventional financing is really they're just trying to prove the price, make sure that there's no obvious disrepair on the home. The conventional appraisal is the most typical appraisal. And sometimes we do have a call out from the appraiser, but it's pretty rare in terms of condition. If he wants something repaired on the house, if he sees some obvious dry rot, that will be called out by the appraisal for repair. And then the one benefit we can see is, an appraiser, there might be a slightly reduced pressure on the appraiser on the appraisal process if the buyer has a very high down payment. That can also, benefit the appraisal to some degree because the appraiser has very little to prove in terms of making sure that the loan to value is not a risk for the bank. With a buyer's high down payment, that he can have some flexibility in terms of the value because the loan amount is so much lower than the actual sales price of the home. So that's a lot of information. I'd love to talk to you about it in person, but those are just the 5 general factors that an appraiser is looking at. He's looking at the location, the condition, the features, the current real estate market, and the type of financing that the buyer needs for the loan.